Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Career and Technical Education Podcast. I'm Brandon Grace.
And I'm Randall Hust.
And today we have Spencer Henry here with us.
All right. Mr. Henry is the leader of our EMT program here at Lubbock ISD. And it's got just a phenomenal story. And Spencer, I just wanted to have you on so that you could kind of share your journey with all of our listeners out there, just because I think you're an amazing human, and I think your story is amazing.
Well, thank you.
And so tell us a little bit about you grew up around here, right? West Texas boy.
I grew up in Lubbock, Texas. I grew up in Shallowater. I graduated from there from 2008, and then I went to Texas Tech and soon realized that I did not want to go to Texas Tech, and I wanted to do something different. And I looked at other options for myself, and then I looked at being a fireman or, becoming a paramedic or maybe a nurse, and I said, I don't want to be a male nurse. I want to be a firefighter. So I went to EMT school because I knew I had to have that certification before I got into fire academy and got hired as a fireman. And I fell in love with the medicine. I absolutely fell in love with it, and I realized I could get my paramedic before I turned 21, which is what the age you had to be hired with Lubbock Fire Department at the time. So I thought, well, heck, I'll go ahead and get my paramedic. And I really fell in love with the medicine as I got further into it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to spend 3 years as a paramedic, and then I'll go to fire academy. Me and my wife got married right at the end of the EMS school. So I got my paramedic and got married in the same week. And then we had a child. So then we were living life and doing things, and I was working and making good money. So there wasn't really an opportunity to go to fire academy. And I really didn't want to anymore. I loved the medicine, and I stayed in it. So I worked for UMCMS for 5 years, and I really liked it there. And then AeroCare, which is the air medical service here in town, opened up their ground ambulance in Plainview. Mm-hmm. And I went to work there because I thought that would be a great step into AeroCare because that's where I wanted to be eventually, was working there as a flight paramedic. Right. So I worked there for 2 years. I worked as a manager for that truck for a year and managed that service and had a lot of fun. And then once I had reached 7 years of experience, I transferred over to the flight portion of it. So I started flying in Lubbock, Texas, and I flew on the fixed wing in the helicopter there. And I still love the medicine. I learned a whole lot. Air medicine is very different than ground EMS. So I worked for UMCMS for 6 years, and it's ground EMS. And I didn't really feel comfortable with every call that we got until I had been there for 4 years. So the first 4 years, you have that, I don't know. But then you earn that comfort with, okay, I can handle it. I can handle pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. AeroCare is a whole different animal, where it took me about 2.5 years of flying to feel comfortable doing that job. And doing all the things. And then after I felt comfortable doing it, I transferred out to another base. I was in Lovington, New Mexico. So I ended up working for AeroCare for 8 years. So I had 15 years as a paramedic, and the math doesn't math real well right there, but I worked full-time at both places for 2 years. Wow. So that's why it overlaps. And I also worked part-time at Wolford EMS. So I worked out there on the nights and weekends and stuff that I wasn't working the other two jobs. So I really liked those. And then one day on the way to work, I was on my way to Levelland in December of 2022, and I had a accident on the way to work. I don't have any recollection of the accident. I don't remember it at all. But I ended up paralyzed in a wheelchair. Wow. And had a small brain injury and had a couple fractures here and there, but really wasn't, I was damaged badly, but I'm still paralyzed, but it hasn't affected my neurological function hardly at all. So I got out of the hospital doing physical rehab after 3 months, and they had asked me what I wanted to do with my, to continue my career for work or for entertainment, and I said, well, I think I kind of want to teach because I had worked also as a part-time EMS instructor at South Plains College through their program, teaching skills here and there. And I didn't have a lot of time doing that, but I knew that would be a good opportunity for me. So I called the director of the program, who's a friend of mine. Of course, we went through paramedic school together, so I had that in there with him. And he told me, I asked him what I needed to be an instructor out there. I knew there wasn't an open position, but I wanted to look at going out there eventually and doing something and continuing my career. And then in about May of that year, so I'd been out of the hospital for 4 months. I got a call from them, and he talked to me and he said, "Hey, we have had an opportunity come up that we've all talked about and we think that you should apply for." And that was this EMT program instructor here at LISD. So I'm an LISD employee through this program, but I'm a dual credit teacher through South Plains also. So it kind of has to have approval from both both avenues
For sure, yeah.
to be selected for that position. So I said, sure, I'll apply for it. And I interviewed for it, and I really probably wasn't ready at the time to be back to work. I was ready mentally to be back to work,
Right.
but not physically. I still couldn't even get in and out of my own vehicle at that time.
Right.
So,
right.
so I had goals and I had things to do. So I came and interviewed, and I got the first interview, and I thought it went pretty good. And then they called me back for a second interview, which I was very happy to do because people have been very generous through this accident, and a lot of things have been given to me, which has been wonderful. But I like to earn stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like to have stuff earned, and I don't like the things have handed to me, and it felt good to have to compete for the position. So I had the second interview, and I was selected for the job, and then all of a sudden I was a teacher. So I was like, okay, I can do this. And then, we had our new teacher orientation for a couple days, and we came over here, and Mr. Martinez, one of the, I guess he's my preceptor, I guess is the best term for it, is he helped me through all the steps of getting through, grade book and attendance and all the different things and learning how to do it. And I had been our base educator for AeroCare, and I'd been an instructor at EMS, but I had never been responsible for everything.
Sure,
and then I, started way over planning and going through everything and making sure everything was in line and everything was perfect. And me and him had the conversation one day of, he asked me what I was doing, and I said, well, I'm trying to plan the second semester of this course. And he's like, day by day? And I'm like, yes, I want to schedule day by day. He's like, no, do like a week. Have a plan for a week
Right.
by week, and then you can adjust it from there. Because if you do day by day, you're just going to change your calendar every day. It's not going to be beneficial to you. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, well, that's new. And then we talked about the process of the first year, you figure out what you're doing. The second year, you fine-tune what you're doing, and then the third year, you feel comfortable. So it's kind of like that EMS aspect of it, is by the fourth year of full-time EMS is when I finally felt comfortable getting all the calls. Like, I did well at the job, and I was good at it, but you still didn't feel comfortable with it. So having that 3-year plan took a huge weight off my shoulders and made me feel very comfortable. And then I had a conversation with another teacher that my previous jobs, if I didn't do my job correctly or do my best, then people probably died. So that was the mindset that I was taking to this job.
Right.
And it's unrealistic, of course, because that's not going to happen. Yes, they may get a bad grade or they may not learn what they're supposed to learn, but they have to. I don't have as much responsibility as I did at my previous jobs. I have more responsibility in a different aspect of life because I'm teaching them life skills, and I'm teaching them the ins and outs of what we do and how we do it. And it's a different kind of responsibility, but I've adapted to it to be different than and hold it to that same respect, but not worry about the destruction that it could cause.
For sure. Yeah.
So
I can tell you, I was on those interviews as well, and so nobody gave you the job. That's for sure. You definitely, absolutely earned it. Tell me, what were the biggest ahas going from your career in healthcare into the classroom? Like, what were the biggest things that surprised you, or maybe even
the biggest
in a good way or
challenges
bad way?
or the biggest problem, or not the biggest problems, but the biggest aha moments is that I realized that I had been an educator of my peers in the past, where I had been responsible for teaching them why we gave the medications that we were giving, or what we were giving, or why we were giving a different medication, or what procedures were changing, and that kind of stuff. So I taught to a really high level, but I was teaching high-level people to a high level, and this is very different because this is an introductory to this for a lot of these students. This is, I mean, they're high school students, but they're still kids,
Right.
and they have a different mentality than an adult that works at an air medical service and knows them somewhat just of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and we're just correcting it. So I had to take a step back and say, how would I want to have learned this when I learned it the first time? So I'd been through my EMT course at South Plains College, and I had that information, and I knew what information I needed to give to them, but I needed to give it to them in a relatable format. So I had to make it relatable to them to where they could understand it, where it's still the same information, still informative, but fun and entertaining, and keeps them engaged in the classroom.
Is there a pressure, probably self-imposed, knowing that you deal with all seniors, right? And knowing that upon graduation and upon them passing their tests and their clinical rotations, they're going to be on an ambulance and they're going to be having the same pressure that you had.
Yes,
felt,
it is a huge amount of pressure for them, and I understand that even their clinical rotations can be very daunting for a student, even for an adult EMT student, much less a high school student, because a lot of people don't have the experience of going into the ER and it being a good experience.
Sure.
Usually it's somebody's worst day
Right.
when they're going to the ER.
Right.
That's the worst day of their life or one of the worst days of their life. Whereas the caregivers there, it's their job. They go there every day, so they're used to it.
Sure.
But I remember walking into the ER, my very first rotation as an EMT basic, and I had my stethoscope in one hand and I had my blood pressure cuff in the other, and my mind was racing. My heart was racing, and I was freaking out because I didn't have any knowledge of. I'd never had to go to the ER other than as a small child with a broken bone, but I thought that was cool because I was in, it was fun then. And now I'm an adult and I'm thinking, oh my, I'm responsible for all these people. Yeah. So I've really worked to teach these kids that they're going to go in there and they can make a difference in someone's life by simply just having a smile on their face and being comfortable. So we do tours of the ERs, and for our EMT program, we do tours of the ambulance stations and up to AeroCare. Cool. That way they feel comfortable going in for their first time, because it may be their first time ever in an emergency room, and they're there to be a part of the care team versus just being there as a patient. So it's very different. So that's been one of the things that we've done for sure.
While we're kind of in this great segue, our EMT program we've had going for several years. Had a great paramedic that helped us get that started. And then we've had a couple other guys there, and now you. Tell us a little bit about your program. Like, what does it look like when a kid comes into your program? What's the process? How do clinical rotations work? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So we have a dual credit program through South Plains College, and they have to enroll in college as a dual credit student and get in that college. And they do have lots of requirements to get into that college. There's shot records. There is vaccinations, there are background checks, there are all of those things that are required to get into the EMS program, and most EMS programs across the nation, or all EMS programs across the nation to get into those. So it's more challenging than enrolling in, say, a dual credit math course, because it's another step above that.
Right.
They do complete the didactic portion the first semester, and then the second semester is a dual credit portion where they can receive up to 5 hours of college credit. So they get 3 hours for the EMT course itself, which is the grade that's in my class, and then they get 2 hours for their clinical rotations. Okay. So they are required, if they enroll in the dual credit program and they complete the course, then they have to complete 120 hours of clinical rotations. Wow. It works out to 36 hours in the ER, 12 hours in labor and delivery, and then 72 hours on the ambulance. Wow. So these are each 12-hour shifts. So they have 16 weeks to complete these, so it's less than one a week that they have to do. And they do have an excused absence a week to get those done during the week, so they're not having to do them on nights or weekends, or they can do them on nights and weekends, but that way they can do them during the week also. That way it makes it available for them. So it's 3 shifts in the ER. They have 2 ERs here in town that they have the choice of going to. They have 12 hours in labor and delivery. There's 2 labor and delivery departments here that they can go to. And then they spend 72 hours, which is 6 shifts, on the UMC EMS ambulances with the crews.
And this is not simulation.
No, sir. This is not simulation. This is real live action. You're there in the ER as an extra set of hands. You will lift and move patients. You will do skills. You will do CPR. You can do all kinds of things in the ER. Anything that is in your scope of practice, and they will let you do. So you can do almost everything in there. In labor and delivery, you will see a live birth. You can help with a delivery. You can do all kinds of different things in labor and delivery. It's a very rewarding time because you don't do deliveries very often in the field, but when you do them, you need to know how to do them.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what that rotation's for. And then on the ambulance, you're another set of hands on the ambulance. You're a part of that crew. Right. You do all the lifting and moving. You do all the skills. You do all the loading and loading of the ambulance. You do the stretchers. I mean, you do a little bit of everything. So it is a great experience, and it's very eye-opening for these students because, yes, we've probably all seen ambulances on TV,
Sure.
but it's not that way most of the time in the real world. So they get lots of life experience, much less EMS experience. In
I'm
these calls.
thinking about, even you were saying that how your heart was racing the first time you were in the ER. What's the reaction when those kids come back from their first rotation on clinicals? Like, what does that even
Most
look like?
often they come back and they are very surprised that they're extremely excited about it,
That's cool.
that they had a good time, that they went in and they were nervous, but the nurses that are there and the doctors that are there took them under their wing and guided them through the process, and they got to do all kinds of cool stuff.
That's awesome.
We talk about it weekly in the classroom about experiences, good and bad and ugly, at clinicals, so that we can keep an eye on if they're having issues, if they need help with getting through emotional stuff or that kind of stuff, and what cool stuff they saw, because not everybody gets to see the same things every day. So this person might have seen one thing and that person, but they can all learn from those experiences and all get feedback on how it's done and how they can do it.
What's the culmination of this? I mean, obviously the goal is that they'll leave with their EMT basic or be prepared for that. So what does that look like as far as on the end of the year side?
So the end of the year side, we do National Registry preparation. This whole semester, we're going to do it. Today was our first actual National Registry prep exam, and it was a little eye-opening for them. But this will help them and make them way more prepared for that test. So we do one test a week for this entire semester to get them prepared for that National Registry, to where when they go in, they've taken this test already, essentially.
Right.
They're just retaking it, hopefully, by the time they go in and get it. So the preparation of this course, we hope, I would love for these students to go on and get their advanced EMT and then go on to get their paramedic as well and work in EMS. But lots of people that go into the EMT program choose other pathways, not in a bad way, but they may be going to nursing or they may be going to healthcare.
Yeah, there's certainly more paths they can take.
They can
for
go
sure.
literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Not only is the EMT program very beneficial for healthcare providers, it's very beneficial for anyone. These are life skills that you're going to learn how to do, and you can give medicine to your children. You can treat bumps and bruises. You can do all kinds of things, and you can feel way more comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
So we try to teach it as a life skills class as well as the EMT course. That way, because you can use these skills for the rest of your life, regardless if you go into EMS or not, they're still beneficial for everything.
Yeah, gotcha. And then, so do they have to be 18 before they can actually test?
They do not have to be 18 before they actually test the National Registry. So the National Registry exam is what we're practicing for. That is the National EMS certification, and that will get you your license in 26 different states.
Oh, wow.
So all you have to do is get your National Registry, and then you pay the individual states to get your license. The other 24 states require you to do some sort of extra step in their states. So like New Mexico requires a state test, which is much like the National Registry, very similar, very set up, but it's to their state protocols.
Gotcha.
Whereas Texas, you just pay the fee, you do the background check with Texas, and they send you a license.
Gotcha.
It's no big deal.
Could they recognize the National Registry?
They
as
recognize the National Registry as their state exam.
I got you.
Which teachers that happen? It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
I want to go to California. Teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is what's beneficial about it.
Yeah.
It's not like nursing, where they have the nursing boards that they can get a license in almost any state with that, and they can operate as a nurse, because at the National Registry certification for an EMT, you can't actually operate as an EMT. You have to have a state certification to go along with it. So it's a double-edged sword, because it's beneficial because you have to have it to get those state certifications,
Right.
but you can't operate as an EMT with just that certification. You have to have a state certification to go with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. And where do your students end up working?
So this is my second year. Last
Right.
year I had 3 students that have become EMTs out of that course, and two of them were also in the fire academy here at LISD, and they both work for fire departments right now. One works in Odessa, Texas, and one works in Clovis, New Mexico right now.
Nice.
The other one is an EMT, and he works part-time for one of the services here in town.
That's
and
cool.
he's going to South Plains to get his advanced in paramedic.
Nice.
So
awesome.
he's moving on in the right
Obviously started the
hopeful
fire
direction for sure.
That's cool. You mentioned the National Registry and how other
Yeah.
states recognize that. So we have a pretty broad audience, and I know
Yeah.
lots of folks are looking at these things. As a matter of fact, I was in a meeting this morning with a CTE director from another school district, and they're talking about starting an EMT program, and they actually have come here and visited to see what you guys are doing here. What would you tell folks that are thinking about getting this program started? What kind of pitfalls do they need to look for? Why should they start it?
So an EMT program is beneficial for the community because EMS will always be in demand. It is one of the most in-demand healthcare practices right now because there is a national shortage. Much like there's a national shortage of nurses and everything, there's a national shortage of EMS as well because the country is growing, the population is growing and getting older, so we need more EMS. Like when I worked EMS here in town, we had 8 trucks on the street, and now we have 12.
Wow.
So it's even increased by 50% in just 8 years since I've been on the street here in town. So that's significant, and it's only getting bigger. So there's a demand for EMS. So this EMT course will definitely be a benefit to the community. It'll be a benefit to the students, and it will give them a window and skills into other healthcare practices. So they could go to nursing. They could be pre-nursing and choose this course and use these skills because we teach a lot of the same skills: vital signs, bandaging and splinting, immobilization, lifting and moving patients, those things.
Right.
Those are all nursing skills too.
Right.
So they're used in different platforms in different ways slightly, but it gives you the basis of knowledge in those. There are several paramedics that I know of. Well, they're doctors now. They went and they were a paramedic and then went to medical school and became physicians. So they have benefited from that significantly as an EMT program. So I think it would benefit the community, and it would benefit the healthcare practices in general.
I'm sure every state is different as far
Yes.
as getting those the state level stuff going. What are the overarching national things? Is it kind of a standard set of skills that the students are going to be learning? Is there
Yes, there
set
is a
curriculum?
standard set of skills. So the National Registry doesn't. They used to do skills testing over EMT skills. They used to have to test separately. So they did the test itself, the National Registry exam, and then they did a skills exam as well. But they came to the realization that that was limiting of people because there were only certain locations that they could go to get those skills done. And the EMT courses did a better job of testing the skills anyways. So we have to sign off on these skills, and my sign off on these skills for these students is a sign off at the national level. So it does qualify for the National Registry sign off on those skills.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So-
That's very cool. Like I said, I believe that there are powers greater than us.
Yes.
And I have no doubt that the steps that you went through were meant to bring you here. Not that anybody would want to wish an accident on anyone, but for the fact of this opportunity to come forward right at the most pivotal time in your life.
Absolutely.
And I remember those days, and like I said, the interviews. I didn't realize until afterwards that you were only a few months out from your accident, and I'm going, holy cow. And I think you made the comment then, you're like, my goal is by the start of school, I'm going to be able to get in and out of my vehicle. And I'm like,
Yes, sir.
man. And I'm thinking back to when I was a first-year teacher. Brandon, I know you went through that. I can't imagine
Right.
facing all that and learning how to live an entirely new life, too. So
Yes, sir.
definitely applaud you for that.
And I
Thank you.
mean, and then the whole, thing of everything happening and us actually needing a new instructor, it just kind of worked out, and it's perfect for you. So.
Yeah, it's
and
been
us.
the perfect opportunity for me to continue my career and pass on my skills and pass on my knowledge and pass on my life experience to these kids and build them as our future. So no, they will not all be in EMS, and that's okay because they'll benefit from this course in one way or another. So that's my goal is to make it beneficial for each and every one of them, whether they want to be a paramedic or if they want to be a nurse or if they want to be a doctor or like I have an engineer in one of my classes right now.
Nice.
That's what she wants to be, but she wants to do EMS
Oh, wow.
just for fun and to, do that, have that experience. And she's really grown into it and she likes it a lot. So she may be a paramedic instead of an engineer, but she's probably going to go on that pathway, and that's totally acceptable.
She may be the engineer that developed some amazing medical
Some
equipment that
For
Paramedics
EMS
use,
only,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. Spencer, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being here. And I can't say enough about what you mean to our program, to our district. I know our kids are blessed because we've got you here. If anybody out there is starting their own program and they would like to reach out, what's the best way to contact you?
Oh, you can contact me via my school email. It's spencerhenry@lubbockisd.org.
Yep. Spencer.Henry.
Spencer.Henry. That's exactly right.
There you go.
So spencer.henry@lubbockisd.org. Feel free to email me, and I will contact you, and I'll give you all the information I have. And if I don't have the information, I'll find it out, and we'll get it together. So
awesome. Well, Spencer, thank you again for your time. I know the bell rang, so we got kids coming and time to get back to work. But thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you. Thank you guys for listening. Hope this was beneficial to you, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
See ya. You can watch and listen to all episodes of the CTE podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Podcast, and LubbockISDTV.com.